Keeping kids safe at the rock climbing crag takes a bit more foresight and effort than when we're hauling our adult selves out there. So today we're talking about the additional steps that we take to ensure we have an enjoyable and safe experience when we're rock climbing with our kids. Hi there again, I'm Jason, and today we're talking about some of the additional things that we think about and do in order to ensure our kids have a safe and fun outing when we go rock climbing. Not only do we want to keep the kids safe, but we also want them to have very positive experiences so that they feel encouraged and want to keep getting out.
Left foot higher. You gotta pull up some while you do it, or you can't get your left foot where you need to.
That means avoiding situations that push them, or mom and dad, too far beyond our comfort zones. Yeah, we want to get pushed beyond our comfort zone on the climb itself, but we want to avoid the stresses that can creep in all around us. We want to focus on the climbing.
It's hard.
Was that your favorite part when you got it, or did you have a different favorite part?
It was my favorite part when I got it.
Yeah? Do you feel proud of yourself?
Yeah.
So today, we're assuming that you already do the basic things that every climber needs to do to stay safe.
I know, you caught it. That's why we check each other.
Partner checks, communication and climbing commands, knots, and the like. But here's a few things that we've learned that we need to focus on in particular when we're climbing with our kids, and we want to set them up for a successful day at the crag.
Find good feet. Get that right hand in. There you go. You're through it again.
First, it's really helpful if you know your crag. We've been surprised more than once when trying out a new location that the supposedly easy approach isn't actually all that easy for kids whose waists are only 1.5 feet off the ground. And not only can approaches be scrambly, they can also be direct and steep, which can be hard on kids who aren't used to those types of inclines. Then there's the landing to consider. What do things look like at the base of the climb? We certainly prefer open spaces without steep drop-offs, where the kids are far less likely to end up in a dangerous situation when they're not even on the actual climb. And then there's the access to the top to consider. While it's nowhere near a showstopper if there isn't easy top rope access, when you do have access to the top, you can easily switch routes without having to lead climb everything. And this can speed up transitions and allow everyone to get in more climbing. It also reduces the most dangerous part of the day, which is something that I'll come back to in a minute. The long and short of it is climbing guidebooks are written for climbers who are comfortable with scrambles and cliffs and the like, and that may not be the same for a kid who's just starting out, so you need to take these references to easy approaches and comfortable belays with a grain of salt. Go there first, check it out, before committing your kids to the location. Another thing that we like to do is define a safe area for the kids when they're on the ground. Don't go past that big boulder on that side or that tree on that side. And when possible, we like to place our packs and gear at the back end of the safe area. This is actually the same thing you would do on an emergency scene. You define an area of operation and then mark out a perimeter. For the kids, this allows us to frame the space positively. You're okay, you're safe in this space. That's a big part of removing the stress of the day because being on the climb itself is stressful, and now they've got a safe place to come back to. For the adults, this gives a visual cue for us so that we can focus on the kids who are climbing for most of the day and only have to snap into distracted kid herding when the kids are beyond the perimeter. And I mentioned using bags and gear as a perimeter. Another thing to think about with gear is keeping it organized. With kids, it's way easier for that quick draw or that climbing shoe or whatever to come out of the bag, get set down, and then roll its way under a log or a rock or whatever. Then it becomes a scramble to find it when it's needed, and rushing around is not the vibe or the safety mentality that you want when you're climbing. So we try to take a few moments between each climb, at each transition, to make sure our gear is staying organized. A place for everything and everything in its place can go a long way to reducing the stress of the day, as well as stop you from leaving climbing booty behind for others at the crag. Climbing gear is expensive enough without you making donations. Now, when it comes to herding kids rather than gear, I'm going to talk about the ideal, knowing this isn't always possible. We found that it's great to have either 2 adults or more, depending on the age and the sense of responsibility of your kids. If you think about it, one adult is belaying, so that leaves one adult to wrangle the other kids if you have more than one kid. Tell me. Climb on.
My boys kid hit the button, Mom.
It's on, bud.
However, this also means that when you're leading the route, you have both adults who are busy. So you may want another adult or bring along a toy or a downloaded movie, something that your kids can use to handle their alone time. But just be aware that this is the most dangerous part of the day. You're doing the most dangerous part of the climbing, the lead, and you have the maximal amount of adults occupied, too.
That rock that you're right next to looks like it's gonna shear off at some point.
So think about how you want to manage this time. And speaking of putting up the route, I think about top rope anchors differently when there's going to be a bunch of kids climbing. And in particular, I'm thinking about an anchor that can take multiple directions of pull, because kids don't always stay right on route under the anchor. Kids don't have the body length to reach all of the holds, so they often meander, finding things that are at their height. So I don't want an anchor that is monodirectional. Because of that, my go-to anchor is a quad when we're climbing off bolts. We have a YouTube short that goes into how to set up a quad anchor, but here let's just talk about the benefits. I can pre-rig this on the ground, but most importantly, this allows for slight changes in vectors on the direction of pull without unequalizing the anchor. And finally, you should put some thought into what you do if something should happen while your kid is up on the route. Now, normally, this is just fear. It's not unusual to hear a kid yell, "I want to come down." Obviously, that's pretty easily solved. But sometimes fear can grow into panic, and panic can lead to a kid freezing on the wall, unwilling to go up or down.
Let go. Your left hand's quivering because you're so nervous.
Of course, you could just lower the kid anyway. That's likely to end up in scrapes, bruises, and also be pretty traumatic. That's why when the kids were really just starting, we always put a fixed line in along with the actual climbing rope. With two adults, this allowed the free adult, the one not belaying, to ascend the fixed line and go talk to the kid who's on the wall. For us, the fixed line ended up mostly being used for coaching kids through tricky moves, but it was also a nice psychological safety net for them to have their parent beside them.
In the crack and above your head. You did it.
By myself, and I thought you placed my feet.
Yep, you did it all on your own.
But also, and this is part of the part we never like to think about, that fixed line would have made it way easier to go get the kid if the child actually got hurt. In single pitch climbing rescue with adults, you're typically doing something called a pickoff, and as part of that, you're having your belayer ascend the climbing rope to get the injured climber who's above. But that only works if the weight difference between the climber and the belayer is small enough that they can counterbalance each other on the rope. With a 30 or 40-pound kid, that just isn't the case. So a fixed line allows for an independent system so I can get up to and back down with an injured child should I have to. Of course, ascending a rope, attaching a person to what is for them a new rope, and then bringing both of you down requires some know-how, and we'll get into some of those techniques in later videos. But this is our starting point. These are the things that we do to make sure our kids feel a sense of safety and security that becomes their foundation that allows them to focus on climbing hard, something that by definition can push them beyond their comfort zone. It's okay for them to feel uncomfortable about the difficult move or the natural fear that comes with slipping off a hold, but we don't want them worried, and we ourselves don't want to be worried, about all the other aspects that are going into a day out at the rock. So let us know what you think in the comments section. Have you used any of these considerations in your days out climbing with the family? Maybe some others. If you want additional thoughts related to this video and any video that we produce, along with links to the equipment we discuss, sample gear lists, sample itineraries, and links to other outdoor resources, please visit our website at shortguysbetaworks.com. The link's in the description below. And if you want to be alerted as we release new content, please subscribe and ring that bell. We produce educational content like this, as well as short films of our family adventures, and we release something new every week. So if you have ideas for content that you'd like to see, you can put those suggestions in the comments section too. Until next time, keep on getting more out of that big outside.